What happens when the most powerful predator of the open sea becomes one of the most valuable foods on Earth? And how do we go from a creature that never stops swimming to a pristine sashimi slice on your plate? This is the extraordinary journey of the monster tuna, from ocean giant to factory processed delicacy. Let's start with why tuna is such a big deal. These fish are built for speed and distance. They never stop swimming, literally, because it's how they breathe. With sleek bodies and strong muscles, some can race across oceans at over 40 miles an hour. The biggest of them all, the Atlantic bluefin, can grow over 10 feet long and weigh more than 1,000 pounds. One even sold in Japan for nearly $800,000. Tuna isn't just for luxury sushi though. It's in everyday sandwiches and cans around the world. But wild stocks, especially bluefin, have taken a serious hit from overfishing. That's why tuna farming stepped in. It started in the 1970s as a way to meet global demand without destroying the species. Today, farms raise tuna from egg to adult in massive offshore cages, with thousands swimming under constant care. So, how do they actually do it? It all begins at the hatchery. This is where mature tuna are kept in carefully controlled tanks, encouraged to spawn. When the females release their eggs, tiny, nearly invisible, they're fertilized and placed into special water systems where every detail is managed. Light, oxygen, temperature, and salinity all have to be just right. One small change can ruin an entire batch. After a few days, the eggs hatch into clear, pin-sized larvae. At this point, the larvae are fragile and need constant care. In the wild, most wouldn't make it, but here, they're given a survival boost. Their diet starts with live food like brine shrimp, then moves to tiny protein-rich pellets designed to match their natural meals. High-tech tools help out too. Robotic feeders, oxygen sensors, and underwater cameras all track their progress and alert staff to any problems. As they grow and hit the size of a small sardine, the young tuna are moved to bigger tanks, or sea pens. This is the juvenile stage. From here on out, things get serious. The fish are sorted by size so that the big ones don't bully the smaller ones at feeding time. Their meals also change. Some farms still use bait fish like anchovies or squid, but more are switching to custom-made pellets. These pellets are packed with nutrients and designed to look and act like live prey. But tuna is fussy. If the pellets don't seem right, they'll ignore them completely. The stage is all about careful growth. Water is constantly flowing through the cages to mimic ocean currents, which keeps the tuna active and builds muscle. Farmers keep a close eye on things, sometimes just by watching, sometimes with help from underwater drones. Any fish that looks sick or isn't growing well gets pulled out. If needed, they'll add probiotics or medicine to keep the whole group healthy. Each cage operates more like a floating lab than a fish pen. Once the tuna outgrow these setups, they're moved again. This time to massive offshore cages. These pens can be up to 40 meters wide and 20 meters deep, anchored in clear, clean ocean water. It's the open sea, but with walls. The tuna have room to move, build strength, and put on serious size. Divers go down regularly to inspect the nets, and smart sensors constantly track things like oxygen and temperature. Some farms even use phone apps to watch the data live. At Sojit's tuna farm Takashima in Japan, the crew uses this info to fine-tune how and when the fish are fed. Small changes in water temperature can make a big difference. The goal? Grow them big, keep them healthy. Most tuna here are raised for 3.5 years and reach about 60 kilograms. But some keep going, topping 200 kilos. These are the giants, the real monsters of the farm. And once they hit that perfect size, the next step is harvesting. And that's when things get serious. Unlike the wild chase of open sea fishing, harvesting tuna on a farm is calm, fast, and exact. Divers head into the pens and pick out the best fish based on how big they are and what the market needs. Then, with an electric harpoon, they make a quick and humane strike. This method does keep the fish from struggling, which also keeps the meat clean. No stress, no muscle damage, no drop in quality. Once the tuna hits the deck, the clock starts ticking. There's just 90 seconds to get it bled, gutted, and into an ice bath. Any longer, and the meat starts to break down from lactic acid. And that's how you end up with dull, mushy tuna, what the industry calls burnt. Everyone on board has a job. Some cut the gills, others handle the gutting. Then it's straight into a tank of ice-cold seawater to lock in that freshness before it fades. Next, the tuna heads to the processing plant, and that's where things move like clockwork. First, it's all about timing. Any leftover bits, organs, tissue, or fat are removed by hand. At places like Sojitz Tuna Farm, Takashima, Japan, this is done with such care that the fish loses a bit of weight, but the trade-off, it stays fresh longer. The trimmed tuna is then rinsed in a slightly acidic electrolyzed water solution. This special rinse kills bacteria without touching the quality of the meat. It even gets rid of that usual fishy smell. The result? A factory so clean, it doesn't even smell like fish. After another chill, the tuna is ready to be cut. Some farmers use shaping machines for consistency, but many still rely on expert hands. Butchers slice the fish into thick slabs, belly blocks, half loins, or whatever the customer wants. Some restaurants even request whole fish or live carving shows. Cutting tuna is a craft. With long, razor-sharp knives, each slice follows the muscle grain to keep the texture just right. Now comes the cooking line. Conveyor belts move trays of meat into steamers that cook the tuna at over 100 degrees Celsius. It's just enough to cook it through without drying it out. Then, it's cooled and sent packing. Some of the meat is minced, precisely weighed, and placed into steel cans. The rest of the process? Oil or brine goes in, lids are sealed tight, then the cans are heat sterilized, washed, labeled, and boxed for shipping. But not every tuna ends up in a can. The premium stuff, sashimi grade, is treated differently. After trimming, it's flash frozen at -40 degrees Celsius using a method called IQF. Individual quick freezing. This locks in the taste and texture like nothing else. The frozen cuts are vacuum sealed, stored in deep freezers, and sometimes flown straight to Tokyo's Toyosu Market, ready for sushi chefs and high-end buyers. Toyosu Market is where tuna turns into serious money. This is the place where top-grade bluefin gets auctioned off to the highest bidder. Buyers don't just glance, they inspect every inch, checking the fat, the texture, and that deep red color. The most expensive part? The fatty belly, known as otoro. It's soft, buttery, and melts in your mouth. That's the cut that can sell for thousands per pound. And nothing goes to waste. Bones and heads are saved for rich broths or specialty dishes. But not all tuna comes from farms. Wild fishing is still a huge part of the industry, especially for skipjack and yellowfin. Skipjack are smaller and found in large numbers. They're usually caught with purse seine nets, huge walls of netting that surround entire schools of fish. Fishermen use floating objects like palm leaves or artificial buoys to draw the tuna in, mimicking natural shelter. Once they're gathered, the net is pulled tight like a drawstring, trapping thousands of pounds in one go. After the catch, the skipjack are dumped into massive onboard chill tanks, some holding up to 27,000 liters and packed with ice. Freshness is everything, so it's a non-stop rush to get them ashore. At the processing plant, the fish are washed, steamed, and stripped of skin and bones. Some get cut into chunks, others shredded into flakes. Then it's all packed, sealed, sterilized, and ready for export. Places like Thailand lead the way. In 2023 alone, they shipped out over $1.6 billion worth of canned tuna. Catching bluefin, though, is a whole different challenge. These giants are usually caught by trolling, dragging lures behind a slow-moving boat. But reeling one in isn't easy. It can take hours, and the battle raises the fish's body heat. If that heat isn't handled fast, the meat can actually cook from the inside and spoil. So, as soon as they're caught, fishermen bleed them right next to the boat and ice them down fast, and then they're measured, tagged, and logged with local authorities. No matter where it comes from, tuna stays valuable only if it stays cold. That's why the cold chain is a big deal. Every step from catch to delivery has to keep the fish chilled. Even the packaging helps. RFID tags now track each tuna from ocean to market, making sure it stays safe, fresh, and fully traceable. Tuna farming isn't just a business. It's actually a way to protect the oceans. By raising tuna in carefully managed environments, we ease the pressure on wild populations. Hatcheries help cut back on the need to take young fish from the sea. Smart Techs keeps the water clean and the fish healthy. And places like Takashima do more than grow tuna. They provide local jobs, boost nearby communities, and set a new standard for responsible seafood. So next time you're enjoying a piece of toro or cracking open a tuna can, remember, behind that simple meal is a monster journey. If there's a process you would like us to explore next, drop it in the comments. We'd love to hear from you. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and stay tuned for more stories behind the everyday things we often take for granted.